Hey, it's Shapes and welcome to another expedition at the Anime Encyclopedia. I was self-conscious that I didn't really have any light on my face. Oh well, didn't work out. At least to my perfect little whatever. Anyway, how you guys doing? Hope you're doing well. And it's gonna be a chill stream. Just didn't read much. I was working on my Naruto video and also some closed caption stuff. So I found myself busy, which is kind of a good, I guess, because I mean, it was canceled either way, but like I wouldn't have been able to make it to my shift because I don't have a car at the moment. But thankfully, I have made arrangements that I can make it to work tomorrow for tomorrow's shift. Then I'll just kind of feel my way around after that. Kind of, at the very least, I want to make it to the Saturday sessions, but like. And then make to some of the cope stuff, but we'll have to see. Hi there. I finished Urusei Yatsura. Nice. Just in time. Just in time. Although I don't necessarily expect the new show to take something in the same lane as the old one. I don't really want to look at comparing the two. At the very least, I do think it'll be better than the first stretch of the Urusei Yatsura. There's still some good episodes in early Urusei Yatsura, but I think it's much better in its later stretch, like as it went on. So at the very least, this is going to be a very good adaptation of like the early stuff, and then from there it's like, you know, I don't want to make the needless comparing, you know, because I want to enjoy both. I want to enjoy some new Urusei Yatsura. Although it's not on any streaming site that I have I mean, I don't have High Dive. So it's going to be... I'm kind of like limiting myself to what's on Crunchyroll. Because I've already picked up 4... I've picked up 4 seasonals. Which is already way more than I've normally done in a long time. And I could have done more. I could have done Urusei Yatsura. Could have done My Hero, but I'm not caught up. Could have done what was the other one? Bleach, but I'm waiting for Bleach to be like core by core. Apparently, it's going to be doing one core and then skipping a season and then doing the next one, and it's going to do that 4 times. I'm going to do it, season by season, pretty much. Maybe week to week for the last part, but I don't know, because it's shonen, right? I like binging it. I don't know if I'd be able to stand watching Bleach weekly. Sing Yesterday for me is pretty good despite the rushed ending. Yeah. Is that the one that Okada was a part of? No. Oh, okay, yeah, there's that series. It's that, okay. I thought it was like the Something of the Heart. Something that Okada was involved with that involved singing. Yeah, I finished the same day as the remake aired, though slightly after. I still haven't seen the first episode of the remake. I'm watching 9 just Saturday this season, and this season's already honestly murder. Yeah, it seems like murder. But I picked up 2 originals that I wasn't going to initially. Do It Yourself and Bocchi the Rock, which is not on my currently watching. I gotta put that on there. But I did watch the first episode of that, and I enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to watching more. I'm going to put that on my currently watching. So that's 6 seasonals that I'm watching right now. 5, sorry. 5. Can't count. I'm watching 20 plus seasonals, maybe like 25. Come on, Greg. God, what are you doing here for? Get going. You're probably behind. Good Lord. How on earth? Never mind. Is that usual for you? Is that typically what you have on with seasonals? God. Anyway, so I mean, the notes in this one aren't too much because I didn't do that much reading. I started at like 4:30. Not 4:30, but like 3:34 or something like that. Because I was working on stuff. I'm sure the new version of Lum will be cutting out a lot of the fat, but that's okay. Those old episodes are still there in the previous. That's what I mean, right? It's like you don't have to. It's like why bother comparing? Just enjoy the new stuff, I think. But it seems like fun. It looks like they're doing well. I am behind. Theater took up all my free time. I mean, I can imagine. Jeez. Anyway, let's get right to it. Actually, no. Before we do that, I wanted to read at least one of the articles that they wrote for the 3rd edition. Let me know if the audio's music's good. 25 is unusual. Normally it's 10 and 8. Okay, that's still a lot though, Greg. I don't think even in my like actually watched seasonal anime phase, I don't think I ever went more than 10. Good lord. Okay. Fantasy and Fairy Tales is the name of this article. Don't really know what it's going to be about. I don't have really any expectations for it. It's like, okay, what do they gotta say? Let's find out. As early cartoons were regarded solely as a children's medium, fairy tales have formed a natural part of their repertoire, often with a discernible tension between local stories that have domestic sales potential and international ones that offer better profit, but also higher risks. That's an interesting like risk and reward of like, do you do the the Japanese stuff versus doing like outsourcing and like you get better broader appeal. That's a fair point. All information about animation development before 1923's Great Kanto earthquake is necessarily vague, but the best contender for the first folktale anime is Seitaro Kitayama's early version of Monkey and the Crab. I do appreciate that, like, when I read fantasy and fairy tales, I just kind of have a Western mindset to it, but I'm happy they're actually going for Eastern Japanese rich folk tales. Also, yeah, never mind. Not really a big deal. I'm watching 12 season anime. I'm enjoying 10 of them, but so best season for me in a while. I haven't dropped any from this season yet, so the number might shrink. I once watched 20 seasonals at once. Needless to say, this was the last season I ever watched anime seasonal. Yeah, I can imagine so. God, I can't imagine. What season was that? Do you remember? Tuel Dai Shasha? Quite the name. Do you remember what season that was? Because there have been some pretty busy seasons where I can imagine that happening. But like 20, that's basically all of them. Like for some seasons, that's practically all of them that were coming out at the same time. The following year saw anime's first use of ancient folklore for commercial ends, with The Tortoise and the Hare of Aesop's Fables, adapted into a one-reel children's entertainment by Ikuo Oishi, and sponsored by Morinaga Chocolate. Anime has often fought its childish reputation with choices of worthy adaptations, such as the Chinese Journey to the West, first appearing as Noboru Ufuji's Son Goku Monogatari from 1926, and 1001 Nights, from which The Tale of Alibaba and the 40 Thieves from 1928 became a 17-minute epic in the hands of Takeo Ueno. The film's producer, one Toshio Suzuki, is no relation to the man of the same name who produced so many Ghibli films half a century later. During the rise of Japanese... I don't know why you need to mention that then. I'm just like... the film's producer has the same name, but it's no relation. It's like, is that all you need to say? Like, why else bring up the producer besides, like, he has the same name? I don't know. I guess it's not that interesting. Spring 2018, I see. Such classics as... Megalobox was that season, wasn't it? Spring 2018. I watched a good number of them too that season. Happy Kiss, Amanchu, Gun Gale for some reason, though I did like it. The new LOGH, Part 5, Lupin, Hero Academia 3. Yep, Megalobox, I was right. Damn. Pretty cool. Must have been a lot more than that, though. Gosh. Megalobox was that season. During the rise of Japanese nationalism in the pre-war years, there was an increased concentration on Japanese folktales, along with the tales of piracy and anthropomorphic animals. In the midst of post-war deprivation, a notable early fantasy is Masao Kumagawa's Magic Pen, Maho no Pen, from 1946. I can see this being the reason they're making this article is to shine a light on a lot of these early stuff that don't have their own articles. Monkey and the Crab has its own article, and some of these other ones do, but like the Tortoise and the Hare commercial, Son Goku Monogatari, again Magic Pen, they don't have their own articles, so it's good that they're able to kind of use this as the backboard for that. An impoverished boy in the ruins of Tokyo dreams that the blue-eyed doll he finds in a black and white film, but the synopsis is keen to stress the doll has blue eyes, comes to life and draws him an apple with a magic pen. The pen's magic causes the apple to become real, prompting the pair to take the pen and draw a new building amid the post-war desolation in a touching allegory of hope and reconstruction. Sorry for making you yawn. As Japan rebuilt, anime suffered an infestation of cute animals, including Kenzo Masaoka's Tora the Stray Cat from 1947 and its sequel Tora's Bride, the Kindai Company's Fox Circus from 1948, and Hideo Furusawa's Sports Tanuki from 1949. Anime's first major post-war works drew on Asian inspirations, with Prince of Baghdad, followed by Panda and the Magic Serpent in 1958. With a return to relative prosperity, the anime movie world continued to avoid non-Asian fairy tales, presumably preferring to supply local demand rather than compete with more lavish Disney imports. This period saw another journey to the West, alongside The Littlest Warrior, 1961, Woof Woof, 47 Ronin, 1963. This is all Toei, I think. Not quite all Toei, but Little Prince and the Eight-Headed Dragon from 1963. It was only the coming of TV and the realization that foreign subjects could lead to foreign sales. It makes sense with Astro Boy being partially funded by NBC from the United States. That anime turned once more to European sources, including movies of Tales of Hans Christian Andersen from 1968 and Puss in Boots from 1969. The sheer amount of material generated for television ensured that fairy tale anime enjoyed much greater variety. Much mundane fiction was given a more fantastic look with anthropomorphic animals, as in Treasure Island, like Animal Treasure Island from 1965. While Japanese fairy tales, now dismissed as old hat, were given a new lease on life through their use as inspirations in shows such as Little Goblin and Spooky Kitaro. But fantasy remained a difficult genre to spot in the 1970s. That's right, very, very few titles are in that genre. As anime fought against the eternal onslaught of sci-fi toy tie-ins. Only the magical girl shows such as Little Witch Sally from 1966 and Marvelous Melmo from 1971 might reasonably be regarded as fantasy, although fantastic elements formed part of almost all anime by this point. So it's a stretch. So they actually have like a burying of the folktales for a point. Despite being often regarded as a fairy tale franchise, surprisingly few of the stories of World Masterpiece Theater actually are. Genuine fairy tales of Japanese origin made it to the screen in Heart of the Red Bird from 1979, but in a period in which Disney animation was widely regarded to be in a creative slump, anime began to make bold forays into Western material, with Grimm's Fairy Tales from 1987. So they're already on 87, and then by the time Disney had reclaimed the fairy tale high ground with Beauty and the Beast in 91, that's so weird they didn't mention manga Nihon or manga Sekai. Like, this is the one obvious place where you would mention those. Like, huh? Why don't they mention that? Maybe they do later. I'm just scrolling through the rest of it. I don't see it. That's so weird. They know about it. I really liked the the arc they're forming here, like the flipping from one way to another, in terms of like the balance of Eastern fairy tale adaptations versus Western ones. Another sci-fi anime boom would be nice, but again, that's just more of an excuse to adapt everything space battleship Yamato related. Yeah. Is there a lot of material that like isn't like animated? That's interesting. Like a lot of books and stuff. By the time Disney had reclaimed the fairy tale high ground with Beauty and the Beast in '91, Japanese animators were confident enough to compete with full-length serials of Snow White and Cinderella. I didn't know there was a full-length serial of Snow White from '94. I actually did not know that. It just looked like a... Yeah, Shiryuki Hime no Densetsu from 1994. It's in a very similar art style as the episodes from Grimm's Fairy Tales, which I know because I worked on that release for Discotheque. Let me... That's from Tatsunoko. I'm gonna... Can't I... I'm gonna look that up on YouTube. So there's the OP. Then there's a cartoon channel that has one episode, but it looks mostly gone. Doesn't have a whole lot of Oh, wait a minute. Yep. Yeah, it's got the whole thing. Wow. Friggin' got the whole playlist right here. From Cartoon Channel. Got a lot of stuff. And then Cinderella was also a full-length serial. Cinderella from '96. It's only 26 episodes, Cinderella Monogatari. Also Tatsunoko. Okay. Interesting. 1991, wouldn't you say 89 with the Little Mermaid? I think they were trying to say that like Beauty and the Beast is like the first Renaissance one, because yeah, I think Little Mermaid technically does start the Disney Renaissance, but I think most people give credit to Beauty and the Beast because that's the one that like was nominated for Best Picture. That was like shockingly popular and like really bolstered that. Like, I think Little Mermaid was a success, but it wasn't Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast was just like, they're back. Oh my God, Disney's back, kind of deal. So I, you know, I've seen that 26 episode Cinderella. It's not bad. Cool. Meanwhile, new fantasy anime developed a narrative style inspired not by myths or novels, but by the setups of role-playing games, such as seen in Record of Lotus War and Slayers. Yeah, that was pretty much started in the 90s. And 80s, yeah, pretty much didn't have very much in the way of other fantasy that didn't already have a sci-fi twist to it, you know? Like Dunbine could be close, but that's a mecha. I'm thinking of it, and yeah. Out of like pure fantasy, it'd always be like kind of mixed in, like Urusei Yatsura could be considered fantasy, but you know, yeah, I wouldn't immediately call it that, right? It's got a lot of slice of life, like real life aspects to it. It's not pure fantasy. But there's also that weird blend, right? Because it's always kind of like bleeding in with supernatural and other things like that. I wouldn't say... you know what? You know what actually would be considered pretty strong in the way of fantasy would be Dragon Ball. If you're lean into Shonen Jump a little bit, not so much Fist of the North Star, but Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball's fantasy. That's a pretty significant fantasy, actually. And then right after that, One Piece. Not right after that. There's still a whole decade. in between the two. In terms of 90s, but like in terms of their narrative here, I would say the one exception would be Dragon Ball. Although you could also argue that's more of a sci-fi, but not early Dragon Ball. Certainly later, but early Dragon Ball with like the dinosaurs and animal characters and kind of doing like the magic Dragon Balls, right? It's kind of fantasy. It's kind of a fantasy series. And I can't think of other really major examples like that aren't kind of more of a mix of other things. Like, obviously Kinnikuman is pretty fantasy-like, but that's more of like a sports series, all things considered. I'm just thinking in the realm of Jump, you know what I mean? That's not also like supernatural or sci-fi. That's hard. I'd say Dragon Ball, though. Anyway. Although I like where they're going with that, where it's like, yeah, then they have the more RPG stuff happening in the 90s. Hayao Miyazaki's My Neighbor Totoro and Kiki's Delivery Service reestablished a modernized fairy tale style in cinema theaters, while elsewhere the subtexts of fantasy were exploited for different ends in Urotsuki Doji and its imitators. Yeah. Because, like, both the Miyazaki films they met, because Nausicaa is definitely more of a sci-fi than a fantasy. It's very fantasy, but it's more sci-fi. If you're really to make a judgment call on it. Castle in the Sky is pretty fantasy. Although that one can also be a bit sci-fi. That's really hard. That's a really hard call. Is it more sci-fi or fantasy? Castle in the Sky. Not sure. But then these other ones, like, they're being grounded in a modern setting, like Urusei Yatsura is. So that's kind of bleeds the line a little much. But ultimately, what are we trying to do here, right? What's the end goal of making these categories and stuff? I like this narrative they're going with, this tug of war, but other than that, it's kind of Hunter x Hunter's pretty fantasy. Yeah. Very good example. That's a good in between for Dragon Ball and One Piece. Because I wouldn't have said Yu Yu Hakusho, because that one is very urban fantasy, all things considered, for the most part. Like, Dark Tournament is not really an urban thing, but it's also way more supernatural, all things considered, if you're gonna make that distinction. But Hunter x Hunter, yeah, definitely fantasy. Taking their lead from a recurring theme in the works of Shigeru Mizuki, from Spooky Uki Kitaro. Spooky Uki Kitaro? Is that a thing they call it? Wait a minute. How often do they go Spooky Uki? Okay. Geki no Kitaro, aka Spooky Uki Kitaro. Maybe that was like a localization thing. Just never heard of that. It's like, what? Anyway, that modernity, and in particular electric light, dispels the ability of traditional spirits and magical creatures to exist. Many anime have explored a theme of numerous nature and the supernatural in a state of prolonged retreat from the onset of urban life. This can take many forms, from the relatively throwaway idea of modern construction projects awakening ancient ghosts like Devil Hunter Yoko, to broader ecological treatments, in which the dwindling of the spirit world functions as an allegory for the ebb of humanity's own culture and respect for the natural world, like Pompoko. In the last 20 years, movie theaters have continued to offer genuine family entertainment, with the most noteworthy works of recent times being Studio Ghibli's Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, and Ponyo, revisiting and refashioning old stories with a personal touch that is pure Miyazaki. Fantasy on television often includes liminal dramas that transport youthful protagonists to new worlds. Isekai, I see. Such as Escaflowne or Tweenie Witches. I didn't know Tweenie Witches was like that. I didn't know it swayed that way. Shows such as Petite Princess Yusie combine the magical girl setups of recent times with the sumptuousness of old school fairy tales. While Loveless cleverly uses anthropomorphic characteristics, or rather their disappearance, as an allegory of the loss of child innocence. In economically straitened times, even Japan's gods have been affected by the 2-decade Japanese recession, as demonstrated by the leading man of Noragami. This is a lot more just kind of general supernatural stuff. I don't really know what they're talking about at this point. It's like, seems very like odd specific titles, and the timeline got really funky, I think. I don't think they had much of a narrative at this point. It doesn't seem like it, at least. I think it's because anime really blew up in the 90s, like television anime was able to be a lot more experimental and was able to do a lot more stuff, and it didn't have to be so strictly risk and reward and commercial, maybe. It's still commercial, obviously. But you have so much variety now, and there's so much more of it being made, that like the pattern, there's no patterns. Even with like if you were to do a similar thing with mecha, when you get to the 2000s, it's like, yeah, there's still mecha. It's not like dead or anything. There was, in fact, a lot more mecha being made just because of how much was being made. And you could say that about almost every other genre except like literary adaptations. But even then they had a couple of those, like Les Mis or whatever. I don't know if Noragami is really about that. Main dude is poor, but that's just him. Yeah, I don't know. They're just it feels like random strands of like, I don't know what they're really talking about right now. A god without any followers, obliged to take on mundane tasks in return for low-intensity worship. Meanwhile, fantasy on video comprises re-releases of both the TV and movie media discussed above, but also a predictable concentration on private titillation. The sexual subtexts of fairy tales, with their allegories of taboos and fears, are often presented as physical plot elements in straight-to-video anime. It is only a short step from Dungeons and Dragons to tits and tentacles. They don't give any examples for that. Interesting. That was kind of a lackluster article, all things considered. I think I really liked the beginning of it, of course. Every single time they bringing up any anime before 1963 is so valuable and interesting. And what I want to hear about, mainly. And then when it gets to this other stuff, it's sort of like just like boomer stuff. I don't know, it just doesn't feel as acutely in tune, I think. Oh well. Yeah. Let's... about a half hour. Let's check out the notes, and then we can, when these are done, this will go over pretty quick. We can do another article. Okay. Some changes. Lost Universe, they changed Carol to Canal. There's a name change, respelling. Millie to Millie Nocturne. Added broadcast in the U.S. in Spanish and Turkish. Interesting. They moved Melancholy Slave to Love Doll. So there's this article, Love Doll. I can't find it. And it turns out it was in the M section. They added the first release in the Notorious Vanilla series. For Love Hina, they added mentions to their stereotypes and romance drama articles. Because, it's the same writing, but then they just find ways to shoehorn mention these articles. You should read our article on this thing. They also added roughly a paragraph's worth, talking about the 2001 and 2002 sequels, or like the video series that spun off of Love Hina. And then Love Position Holly was renamed to Love Position The Legend of Holly, but it was the same location. That's it. New entries. Otoko Ippiki Gaki Daisho, the first Jump anime. I did not read that article. I'm sorry if I'm messing with the mic a bunch. I didn't read that article because it's a new entry. I'll read it for 3rd edition. I should mention before I move on. But yeah, I didn't read that one yet, but I'm interested. But I decided to kind of fill this out a little bit because I had some time. I had about like an hour left before I had to stream, before I was scheduled to stream. So I read all these other kind of the more notable ones that I would be curious about in the 3rd edition, or that you guys might be curious about. And if you have any other ones, always feel free to ask. Positive. Love Chinibyo. They say it pokes lovingly at the otaku mindset in the sense of make-believe. Thought that was positive enough, and they didn't really say anything too negative about it. They did say one thing, and I'm just like, why do you mention that? Yeah. Lovely Complex. pretty unabashedly positive on that one. Sweet, funny love comedy. They also appreciate that it's takes place in Osaka, so they have those dialects. I didn't know that about Lovely Complex. That was interesting. Lolita, so negative. Lolita 1984, in its own way, far more offensive than Urotsuki Doji. You know, because it's underage, you know, rape. Does not sound good. Does not sound good. There's probably a reason more people talk about Cream Lemon than this one, even though this one's the first one. I'll mention that one more probably later. Love Hina, of course they didn't like it. Characterized by a standard rack of female anime archetypes, contrived an unnecessary video series, of like the sequel at least. But they talked pretty negatively about it overall. Lunatic Night sounds more interesting than it is. Mercifully, one of the only the first 2 parts were released in the U.S. So it was like a 3-episode OVA, and they were just like, "Oh, thank God, we only got 2 of it released over here." Like, all right, sure. No, a little derogatory, but I guess they're being negative towards it. Fair. Little Busters, they were negative towards. They didn't say anything positive. It was not super negative, but they didn't say anything positive about it either. Seems to suffer from the absence of Key's usual collaborators, KyoAni on the production side, and never quite manages to rise above the pedestrian confines of its high concept. Nice. I could have sworn that Little Busters was PA Works, right? There's also a... They didn't really mention that it's 2 seasons, but okay. I'm just looking at the studio, at the mail. Oh, JC Staff worked on the first season. Okay. Yeah, okay. Interesting. Yeah, but people really like Little Busters. Not so much the first season, but Refrain. Got an 8.1 on Mal. 8.2. 8.19, you know. Pretty good score, all things considered. Very few people talk about it now. I'm kind of interested. But, you know. Time. Mixed opinions on Lost Universe. Predictably early beginnings. More gripping quest angle later. Final chapter won best episode at Animage. CG is consistently below par, designed to distract viewer from low-rent cell animation. Very, very little positive about it, but enough positive where it was mixed, pretty much. Let's see, I'm still streaming. Still streaming. Last Exile. Fascinating example of anime business in early 21st century. Quite literally state-of-the-art, good and bad. Design work is superb. Introduces oodles of impressive technology and then refusing to apply it to its obvious uses. This was definitely one of the more, here's my review of Last Exile type of articles. Very reviewy, really giving their take on it, but ultimately pretty mixed. And then dismissive, the worst category. Lullaby for Wednesday Cinderella. The synopsis spends more time on the brands than the characters. I'll mention that in odd choices. And then Double Bill must have been as exciting as changing an oil sump. Awful. Awful. I'll get to the odd choice. I mentioned that in the odd choices more, but yeah. Love Live, I put this in dismissive because they say 3D motion capture unfortunately jars with the rest of the 2D animation. I found it dismissive because this is actually a fairly, I don't know how much of, obviously it might not have been great in the first season, which is really all they have to go off of. But like, the fact that they treat it as, oh, too bad. You know, like, unfortunately. When this is actually a very major pioneering aspect in terms of like idol anime that a lot of other series have since used or have used in the past, and now they're actually applying it, putting it as more of a mainstay, and have developed it over the years, to my knowledge. I'm not super knowledgeable about that genre or Love Live in particular, but the fact that it's a pretty long-standing franchise now, Their opinion seems very dismissive here. Mostly in hindsight, but generally. And then Lucky Star. Oh boy. Let me read you their article on Lucky Star. Oh my gosh. I haven't even seen Lucky Star. I've seen it, I watched the first episode a while ago and was really like flabbergasted, like, what? I wasn't into it. That they're talking about the right way to eat this food for 20 minutes or whatever. I was very dismissive towards it myself. So like old me probably would have agreed with what they said here, but I still, I still don't really like what they're saying it here. Konata Izumi is both athletic and intelligent, yet she's not in a sports club and her grades are low. She doesn't want to waste time studying or playing sports, wherein she could be watching anime, reading manga, or playing video games. Her friends, ultra-cute Miyuki and twins Tsukasa and Kagami, feel the same way. They just want to slack their way through high school having fun. This is a pointless show. One that wouldn't know a story arc if it was hit over the head with one. Shunning plot and character development in favor of a barrage of puns, goofy gags, and reference to anime, manga, and games, all seemingly designed to test the fandom of the proudest otaku. Test the fandom? Like, most fans love this show. Like, what are you talking about? In what is regarded as one of the successes of the everyday anime subgenre. Perhaps their disdain for this show might be one of the factors leading into why they don't like slice of life stuff, but we'll see. Unless you get the point of being able to list every Hot Springs episode ever made, or recall every obscure 1980s video game, this show will leave you cold, hungry, and bored. Even the scraps of fan service are played as gags. You don't even have Kyoto Animation's usual lush visuals to look at, since Lucky Star is purposely kept flat, simplistic, and cartoony, although the studio keeps things moving fluidly and its production values are high as usual. They're kind of contradicting themselves, aren't they? Like, usual lush visuals to look at, but the production, it's moving fluidly and the production values are high as usual. What? Luckily, the nature of the show makes it easy to dip in and out if you decide you just want a few minutes mindless fun. And then that also feels like that last sentence is like they're trying to cover their ass for them saying this is a pointless show. Like, why would you go so far? Like, be like, luckily the nature of the show makes it easy to dip in and out if you decide you just want a few minutes mindless fun. This is a pointless show. What? Bruh. Good lord. To be fair to Lucky Star, it did change directions after 4 episodes. Can you? No way. When do you think they wrote their piece on Lucky Star? It could have been 2nd edition. It could have been. Because the 2nd edition... Wait a minute, no. I think the 2nd edition was published in 06, so it would have to have been 3rd edition. The 2nd edition... Oh, wow, yeah. The 2nd edition was published November 1st, 2006. So this is a 3rd edition article. Because Lucky Star came out in 07. Their hate for slice of life rears its ugly head. Yeah. Yeah, God. That's interesting that it changes directors after 4 episodes. Not direction, directors. Wait, so Takemoto directed the last chunk of it? Or did he direct the first chunk? Let's see. Wow, yeah. Takimoto, who is the director of Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, pretty much like Kyoto Annie's best director. Um, he directed that second half. Not even second half, like most of it. That's very interesting. He's the director of Amagi Brilliant Park. I know he also passed. He was one of the people that really unfortunately passed away during the KyoAni fire. Disappearance director. Second Raid director. And for Fumofu. High Speed. Free Starting Days. Director of Hyoka. He also did the storyboard for the OPED and for like, 3 of the episodes. Okay. Yeah, the director of Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. Yeah. Hey Shapes, how's it going? Good to see you, Hugs. We're doing all right. We're just chilling today. I didn't get to read too much, so we're covering the rest of the first edition. A couple of notable things like Lucky Star. They had their opinion on Lucky Star. I was reading that they said this is a pointless show, one that wouldn't know a story arc if it was hit over the head with one, shunning plot and character development in favor of a barrage of puns, goofy gags, and reference to anime, manga, and games. Unless you get to the point of being able to list every Hot Springs episode ever made, or recall every obscure 1980s video game, this show will leave you cold, hungry, and bored. Sheesh! Yamakan started it. Him getting ejected from KyoAni was kind of a big thing. Oh, I didn't even fucking connect that was Yamakan who did the first 5 episodes. Holy shit. How's Naruto video going? Good. I was realizing about making it that, like, you know, I was saying that I was gonna be really casual about it, and I kind of am. But I still did a couple a couple like opacity masks, and like actually really give a shit about the lighting effects and shit like that, making it look cool, doing some really fun little things here and there. So I think it's a good looking video so far. It's pretty a visually interesting vid, but so it's kind of more in the realm of like loop on in terms of my editing style. Kind of like that one a little bit more, not in the way that it's interrupting itself, nothing like that, but in terms of the visuals, I think. But then the second part is going to be entirely clips, I think. It's got to be almost entirely clips because it's about animation. There's going to be a couple AMV, like little Sakuga Mad things in there. I just did the orchestration, so like put all the music down for that part today, which is what was taking me so long, and I ended up not reading so much. But yeah. Oh, sheesh, that's brutal. Yeah. So it's going okay. In terms of it being released for November 7th, which is what I would like it to be, there's a certain reason for it. The date. What day is that, even? I don't even know. It's a Monday? Yeah, I guess. I guess that's fine. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It could go by pretty quick. All things, maybe. I have to actually work on it more. But I'm not super gung ho and working on it every day type of deal, which I wish I was. I wish I was better at that. I don't think it's me being lazy per se, because I do a lot of other stuff. It's just more it's more of a case of just trying to pace myself out and enjoy the process, I guess. Shades, but when will Naruto finally release so I can watch it? Yeah, that's my intention for the first part. The first 3 sections of the 8 sections. That's going to be its own video. And that's hopefully early November, but we'll see. The other 2 I do not know. I would like them by the end of the year, but I can't guarantee that. Yeah. Spoilers. They describe every episode of Lolicon, which is fair. I'm glad they did, because wasn't. Yeah. Love position Holly. Eventually, it's revealed that blah blah blah. Okay, great. And then Lyrical Nanaha, I think they spoiled. It's like, who's really this? Da, 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 da. I'm like, that seems like a later episode development that I shouldn't know from a synopsis in an encyclopedia. Anyway, odd choices. Let me just get through the good one first. I like their Lolicon article a lot because it sounds repulsive, but it's historically It's historically important because it's the first hentai, basically. Most consideredly the first hentai. There has been animated porn beforehand, technically, but nothing like what we know hentai is today, basically. But this, oh my god, like they really had to throw salt in the wound. I don't see why they had to bring this up beyond just like shocking the audience even more, like repulsing them even more to this title. Later in 1984, an unrelated Lolita anime was released by Nikatsu. Directed by Naosuke Kurosawa, it comprised Aki Feels Ill, Milk Drinking Doll, and Goko Plays Nurse, all adapted from manga by Aki Uchiyama, an artist who once took lolicon imagery so far as to eroticize infants in diapers for Shonen Magazine. I don't know if I needed to know that. I'm sorry I cursed you guys with that information. But, I also don't know if they're exaggerating. I kind of doubt it. But, I never, for some reason, they have not completely lost my trust, despite getting a number of things wrong in this encyclopedia that we found over the time we've been reading it. They have not lost my trust yet. But that's freaking why? But the thing is, because you think about it, it's like, why did you have to bring that up? All you have to say is that it's comprised of these 3 episodes, all adapted from manga by Aki Uchiyama. But then you have to bring up the fact, like, you have to show how friggin' depraved this guy is. Or, I don't even know if depraved's the word, because, like, what's more depraved? Him doing it? Or the fact that it got published in a magazine? And so, the magazine itself, right? It's like, but I also don't know I don't know if these guys are exaggerating or not. Yeah, don't burn out too hard. Just because we're near the finish line doesn't mean you need to finish your brain. Yeah, hentai started with lollies? Yeah, it did. Quite specifically, because if it's not Lolicon that started it, it would be Cream Lemon. And to my knowledge, Cream Lemon is very much lolly. Not completely, but like a lot of it. I could be wrong about that. I haven't seen Cream Lemon yet. But yeah, it was a hard article to read, all things considered, because it was really just like, oof. And they're describing every single episode of what happens in it. It's like, not great. Not a good look. And Lord of Lords. But yeah, I ultimately think it was good because it's just like, it's good you let me know about that one, I guess. But also this, like, a questionable distinction of being the first erotic anime. It was weird how they say it's the questionable distinction. I think what they mean to say is that, like, yeah, it is, but that might not be a good thing. or a notable, yeah, or right. But questionable distinction could also mean not necessarily like it's regarded as that, but it's not necessarily true because there has been like Japanese animated porn before that title. That's so cursed. They did their research. Yeah, these guys do their research. I don't blame them. They do crazy good research. And the thing about this encyclopedia that's super remarkable and notable about it is that this was some. Yeah, this is on the back cover. No, they don't really mention it. What they say, they've said that there was a number of titles when they described this in the podcast they were on promoting the third edition back in 2015. They said that it was notable that this was the first time a bunch of anime was ever first described in the English language. It was ever brought up at all. Like the first time any U.S. or Western people had ever heard of some of these anime was from this book, and makes you wonder, makes you think, if this is how they describe some of these titles for the very first time. It's just like that thing with like Bennett being the first one to talk about many of these OVAs in a video for the first time, and he creates the established stigma of good or bad of what this anime is. Like this is one of the good ones. This is one of the bad ones. Being the first to talk about something like that, first to discover it, you're able to get a lot of initial you're able to set the first impression, is the theory. I thought the point of Lucky Star was sitting around talking with your friends about stuff you liked in high school. Yeah? Wow, first impressions carry a long way. Yeah, I would think so. You think about, it's a little wonky, right? There's some nuance to it, of course. But you think about the first, the launch of Naruto and Bleach in the West, putting them on Cartoon Network, in a kind of an official dubbed capacity, versus how One Piece first got brought to the U.S. with 4Kids. Having it was a different connotation. Even Yu-Gi-Oh! Even to a lesser, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Wasn't butchered in the same way. It was censored, but it was not necessarily butchered in the same degree as One Piece was, as it infamously was. And people would be like, oh, that set One Piece back way further in terms of its growth and popularity in the West. But even so much, when I think about it, it's the same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I always think of Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of as a separate connotation, but it's a Jump title. It's Shonen Jump, weekly Shonen Jump. But I always think of it way different. I don't think of it in the same ballpark as Dragon Ball Z or Hunter x Hunter or Yu Yu Hakusho or Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, even though it published in the same magazine. But it's because it has that first impression connotation, and that can ultimately lead to some people's impressions of it. Yeah, we could do going with choices, then we'll finish with some interesting. Lord of Lords. Each tape contained at least one unbroadcast episode as a bonus, which is a clever way of dragging in extra customers. You see what I mean? When they talk, the way they talk sometimes, I guess the way they write, how they're just like a clever way of dragging in extra customers. Why can't you just say, oh, each tape contained at least one unbroadcast episode as a bonus? Why do you have to add a clever way of dragging in extra customers? Why do you have to add that? Right? Like, being cynical like that. It's that twinge that a lot of this writing ends up having. Love Hina. The franchise returned on several occasions to remind the customers to keep consuming. Or, I don't know, there was more manga that there was to adapt, or the animators found it, there was the audience and the business to make more because they liked making more? Like, you realize that anime can also be a passion project too, right? Like, there's the business side of it for sure. There's plenty of anime that could be very directly cited as like, this was made for money, or this was made to promote this thing. But there's also such things as like the president of MAPPA reading the first volume of Chainsaw Man and being like, "Oh my god, we need to make this an anime." Like from 2019, and they were planning on it for that long. It started development like, I don't want to spread misinformation, right? But like that's what they were saying. That it was just like they had this in mind and they were planning, intending on this from the beginning for a long time. So it's like you have to go case by case with this thing. You can't. It's a cynical way of looking at this at media like this. Just be like, oh, occasions to remind the consumers to keep consuming. Like, you're just saying words for the sake of it, right? You're just writing that to be whatever. I just don't like it. Yeah, and then people's impressions spread and it scares people from either watching it or informs their impressions. Yeah, it literally just means like, oh, I heard that show was bad. There's a sourness to the writing. They're definitely making a lot of assumptions and often in bad faith. Yeah, I feel like bad faith it's hard to gauge that sometimes, but I think you're right. That it ultimately seems like bad faith based on their previous assumptions and how much research and history they've looked into. They've looked into this way too hard. So it could be said, and never mind the fact that they're very media poisoned, constantly bringing up stereotypes, archetypes, tropes, cliche. Like, God, who cares, dude? A discerning anime viewer, like, stop. You're ruining it for yourself. Yeah. Oh my god. For Love Hina, by compressing the entire story in 30 minutes, so it was like an OVA, it was like a recap OVA, rather implied that much of the runtime had been unnecessary filler. I hate this mindset. Stop perpetuating it. Stop. No. Because if it doesn't directly move the fucking plot forward, it's filler. Are you kidding me? That is the enjoyment, like watching the characters interact with each other. That's the media. That's the fun of it. You just don't like the characters, so fuck off. Like, it implied the runtime had been unnecessary filler. What the fuck? What the fuck? Was the majority of fucking Urusei Yatsura filler then? Because it doesn't progress the plot or introduce new characters or whatever? Jeez, like, are you kidding me? You don't get it. That's not the point. Jeez Louise. Not that bad practice isn't a thing, but different people play different roles. There's business people who make those decisions, and there's artists who are just doing their best. It's crazy how far people will go with their assumptions. I feel like they reflexively defend anything that these two bash at this point. I'd reflexively defend anything these two... No, that's my thing, Greg. Oh, it absolutely is. Anything they've... I just don't want any anime to be talked about like this. Right? And it doesn't matter how shit or whatever it is. Like, I have a negative opinion on XYZ anime, but if they got, like, putting it in the mud, I'm not going to look the other way. You know? At least I don't feel like looking the other way. I still might. Like, if they chat on Code Geass, I kind of wouldn't mind, but... but, like, I still wouldn't. It depends on what they say about it, right? Shabes, fun is filler. Why are you so mean? Yeah, I know, right? We all know that Looney Tunes was 99% filler. Yeah, right? God. Lucky Man. Guys. Oh, guys. Okay, so I'll admit, I don't know much about Lucky Man. If you need to know what Lucky Man looks like, it's Totemo Lucky Man. This is a Jump series. It's a gag series from Shonen Jump. And the one thing I know about it is the cuts that Yoshinori Kaneda animated. I have some cuts of it in my Gurren Lagann video. It was also by Studio Pierrot around the time when they were doing like Ninku and Yu Hakusho and stuff. It's kind of like, you know, seems like kind of a fun time. This is what they fucking say about Lucky Man. And this is one of their short articles. So if you know, I've been discerning whether something's a long article. It's like, oh, they spent a lot of writing on this article, versus a short one. Oh, they really glossed over. They didn't really spend much time on it. And this is an example of, like, this is all they fucking say about Lucky Man. Yoichi is an unpleasant teenager, but one who can transform at will into the luckiest man in the world, a superpower that he uses freely to get himself out of embarrassing situations. Based on a Shonen Jump manga by Hiroshi Kamo, and featuring a lead character who resembles a mohawked version of South Park's yammering Canadians, Terrence and Phillip. That's it. The fact that he fucking looks like Terrence and Phillip from South Park. I mean, I guess that's useful for for like this book, that you don't have a visual for what you don't have any visuals, right? That's one thing, is like, I do like it sometimes when they were able to describe what it looks like. Oh, it kind of looks like these designs or whatever. But like, come on, dude. That's all you can say about this fucking show? And you think this is very likely that was the first time it had been talked about in the West, in English. It's very likely that this was the first time it had ever been brought up in English. Like, bruh. That RSA Arts stuff can be fun. Hope you're able to share your video again when the new release hits. I wrote that article about the subs on ANN the other day. Oh, thank you. Good to see you. You had a name, and I'm so it's not just Six Pack, but I saw it, and then you I did read it. It was really useful and interesting. I guess it's fine. I did really like that article. Yes, thank you. Yeah, what the fuck, right? Oh man, come on. Yeah, I mean, resharing my video. I mean, I actually haven't, like, in case you know, when the first episode came out, I didn't even remember it, and then somebody else tweeted it. Actually, they're like, "You should check out this video," and I was like, "Oh, thanks." Not to me, but like they tweeted, and they added me, and so I was like, "Oh, thanks." It didn't even register to me that like I had made a video on that, which is funny. It's all good. It's Coop. That's right. Yes, Coop. Good to see you. Lullaby for Wednesday's Cinderella. Yeah, dude, what the hell were they doing here? I put both of these in their what is it, dismissive, because it doesn't sound like they fucking watched it. Dude, look, like, the reason I put in dismissive, right, is because I'll read the synopsis to you. Oh my god. Kenji is a motorbike-mad teenager in Yokohama who just loves his Z2 machine and likes nothing better than grabbing his girl Yumi, skipping school, and motoring down the coast. Hearing from fellow biker Hayase about a fabled racer called Wednesday's Cinderella, Kenji witnesses Hayase on his SRX, squaring off against Cinderella on her Porsche cycle. And then they put in parentheses, the synopsis spends more time on the brands than the characters. So are you just saying you're regurgitating this plot and you're not even, like, writing your own copy line for it? Like, are you really just commenting, like, giving armchair commentary on the synopsis that I assumed you were writing? Are you just copy-pasting this thing and like, this fucking synopsis would get a little of this thing? Are you kidding me? That's what it sounds like. You've got to be kidding me. I keep repeating myself. Like, what? And what's wrong with them mentioning their brands of their motorcycle? Because that shows character. It shows that they actually care about that thing. There's plenty of these, like, biker, you know, delinquent type of series like Shonen Bakuzoku, but, like, that's interesting. I don't know shit about motorcycles, and that's interesting. What the hell's wrong with that? Dude! And I'll read the rest of it. It's not that long. Concerned for his friend's safety, Kenji sets off after him, borrowing his friend Kyosuke's Ducati. Based on a Shonen magazine manga by Michiharu Kusunoki, who also created Shakutan Boogie. made for video, but screened on a double bill in cinemas with Legend of Rolling Wheels, which must have made the day as exciting as changing an oil sump. And they're just commenting on the fact that, like, boy, that sounds like a stinker of a double feature, because they're both about fucking motorcycles or something. Where's this coming from? Can you please quit the snark? I can't ask because it's a fucking book. It's already published. Fuck it. I have a whole half of the book left. Can you quit it with the fucking snark? Honestly, I just want to learn about these fucking shows, and this is what I get. You know what I mean? It's not useful. I don't think it's useful. That's such a bizarre stretch. Maybe not even bizarre, just lazy. Well, I've been meaning to read that ANN article on UI subs. Talk about filler. It was cool to put together. Made me excited to see it when it's ready to go again. Happy I was able to pop in. Usually miss your streams by a hair. Oh, you know, and always know that the VODs are always there, but it's really good to see you live. I really appreciate it. Yeah, what the hell? But that got me at least interested in it. It's one of the ones I wrote. I did not write it down. God damn it. That's awkward. I guess I was so, like, shocked by that thing I forgot to write it down. It was like, ooh, sick burn. Like, honestly. Luna Varga. From the high concept that... This was just dumb. I'm like, what, dude? Like, is this supposed to be funny? From the high concept that posits a princess with a dragon sticking out of her ass, or a dragon with a princess stuck to its forehead, depending on your perspective. Like, it's because the girl has a dragon tail. Like, really? The dragon sticking out of her ass? That's so crass. I don't know. It was just weird to read to me. Or a dragon with a princess stuck... Like, it's kind of funny, but weird. It's like, okay. Lunatic Knight. The authors... Oh my God. I swear, I definitely think they've done this before. I'll have to look again. But fucking... The authors would like to apologize for making this sound a lot more interesting than it is. What do you have to apologize for? If you're just giving the synopsis and let the reader decide whether it sounds interesting or not. First of all, you're making a judgment call that the reader finds this interesting. It sounds a lot more interesting. But then they're just making a call on its quality. You know? It's like, all right, sure. Interesting content in this book, but kind of flippant, I take it. Flippant's one word. It's one word. I am intending. I've been, streaming this sort of thing for over a year now. So not a full year. There, I took kind of a summer off, but I've been reading it for a long time at this point, and there's a lot of things I want to say about it. So I'm using these streams as a way of compiling all of my thoughts and writing the notes. This stream idea really came about because, anime YouTubers and streamers, anime YouTubers, when they stream, it's hard to really figure out what kind of anime related thing can they do. They can make some tier lists. They can take some quizzes, like anime quizzes. They can kind of look at the season and see what they're gonna watch. There's a couple of things they can do that are anime related, but usually it's kind of just chatting or video games. And I would have these ideas for these big, stupid, long projects that I would find a lot of interesting stuff, but I wouldn't be around anyone to share that with. I found the research just as interesting as the final result, basically. So I wanted to document that long process and have it available. And then the final video would come out and be like, here's all my findings. It wouldn't be as exhaustive, obviously. But it would be very here's some trends with a number of most notable examples. And trying to deliver an ultimate point about this about this book. And then you can be like, here's the whole archive, like hours and hours and hours and hours worth. Obviously, not all of it is centered on this because this is me explaining this project and everything. But like I'm intending at some point to kind of like download the VODs and cut out all the stream and chat and stuff, just to consolidate my thoughts a little more. But yeah. Anyway. Love Chinibio. Yeah, I'm like, what does this seem to imply? There's like, it failed to win the KyoAni talent competition, but went into production anyway. So are you implying that it's like a failure or something? Like, why bring that up if it didn't even win? Like, it's like saying like something was like Oscar nominated is a pretty big deal. Just because it didn't win, even the fact that it was nominated for an Oscar is notable, right? But like, just to mention this thing that like it didn't win but went into production anyway, it just gets this like loser connotation to it, to me. You know, it just doesn't sit right with me. Like bringing that up, why? Like, you can make mention that like KyoAni really posited this story. It was part of this competition, or whatever, and that's part of the reason it was able to be part of this production, or whatever. Sorry if there's a lot of repeating in there, but what does that have to do with it? You know, I don't know. There's the way that's worded, right? It's annoying. Absolutely, that's dope and great way to document it. Yeah. There's other long-term projects I've had in mind, but one at a time. Lyrical Nanoha. A's generated impressive Blu-ray returns in Japan, reminding foreign critics that the implied viewer of a girls' show is not always necessarily a girl. And there's a lot of other framings when discussing Nanoha, because it's very much like, this is for boys, okay? When like, I remember hearing about Nanoha from Trixie and Magical, who, at the time, at least for Trixie, was a guy, and Magical, you know, I don't quite know Magical's pronouns, but I'm figuring is a guy. There's something to be said about that, maybe, but like it was never about that. You know, Nanoha it was more of just like hearing about how, you know, the innovations and novelties about that title specifically, and not being so cynical as to what market this was for. Like who is buying this? It's for boys. Oh, what does that say? Like, let me read it for you. I don't know if you guys have seen Nanoha and could kind of corroborate. I have not seen it. I've only seen reviews of it. I'm not sure KyoAni has produced any of their contest submissions that won other than Violet Evergarden, mostly because stuff doesn't actually win that often. I mean, bringing it up that it didn't win could have been noteworthy if they actually talk about how it still got animated, probably because the staff liked it. They still publish a bunch of books that are submitted, though. Nanoha fandom reminds me of the Symphogear, oddly enough, just in the excitement at the time. Yeah, that's fair. And, you know, it describes the story. Spun off from the forgotten video Triangle Heart Sweet Songs Forever, itself based on an erotic game as part of the Discovery series, Lyrical Nanoha has been appreciably more successful than the story that spawned it, particularly with its appeal by design to an audience not of 9-year-old girls, but of older male fans who can appreciate the references to other anime. As a result, it included a number of elements that separated it from shows for preteen girls. Not the least combat sequences in which the protagonists physically grappled rather than waving wands at each other from a safe and imminent distance. The triangle of the original has its last vestiges in the tripartite structure of its teams, in which 2 girls are usually paired with a single lucky boy. Seemingly in recognition of this alternate audience, hardly much of a surprise in this sector ever since Cutie Honey, the sequel series moved the action forward 10 years, with a significantly more adult Nanoha forming a crime-busting trio with her fellow magical girl Fate and boy love interest Hayate, now actively in the employ of Time-Space Administration Bureau. Nanoha's origin story was retold in a parallel movie version and continued in Second A's, both of which generated impressive Blu-ray returns in Japan, and reminding foreign critics that the implied viewer of a girls' show is not always necessarily a girl. You know, that's the whole... It bled over the whole thing. Like, this is for guys, okay? And this is, like, a really weird and uncomfortable thing for me. Like, you can mention that, like, a little bit. Like, I understand the observation of, like, oh, these girls grapple each other in the fights rather than waving wands at each other. Although I found that waving wands is a very reductive way of describing these other Magical Girl series. Maybe not wrong, but, like... Also, what does that mean for Precure? Does that mean Precure is also mainly targeted at boys? Maybe. I guess? See, I don't know. And I don't care. It doesn't matter whether Precure is for girls or for boys. It just doesn't, to me at least. It's one aspect that can certainly be interesting and have some value, but like, what is this trying to say about Nanaha? Oh, it's for guys. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, it feels weird. Feels kind of weird. Making such a point about that. Anywho, let's check out some of these now interested in. Some of these stuff that I'm just like, oh, just by reading the article, I'm interested in checking it out. I want to see what it looks like. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Love position. Hallie Densetsu. Not very well rated. Cute girl, though. Interesting designs. The very first original animated video produced by Tezuka Productions. Okay, it's first OVA by Tezuka Productions. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. Seemed interesting. Let's see. Luna Varga. Also not very well rated. Oh yeah, this is the one where like she has a dragon tail, I guess. Seems alright. It's definitely stuff I wouldn't have looked at otherwise, but the Kenji Kawai music. Pretty cool. And then Wednesday Cinderella. Well, it's the manga. Is it Sunday? Cinema on Wednesday. Oh. Let's see. Oy vey. Suyobi no Cinderella? There we go. Domesday Kit from Kaneko? Wait, what? Damn, really? What a coincidence. Good shit. Probably the best it's looked in a lot, you know? That you'd look otherwise. And it's subbed! Let's freaking go! Sounds like fun. Maybe watch that later. Really good shit. What do people say? Vaguely Megazone looking. Kenny had a video on that one, I think. I dig those Luna Varga designs. Some fun 90s fantastic going on. I'd be curious if they have the same kind of tone in the articles about Pretty Sammy or Nurse Witch Kamugi, as Nana has very much from that tradition that you spin off things into a magical girl show. Yeah, maybe they have something to say about that. Let me just double check these other two now interested in on YouTube. Love it. Yeah. Oh yeah, Marty has the OST on vinyl. But yeah, the
When you wash your body, do you use a moldy loofah, a dirty washcloth, or you're that guy that just uses their hands more than only?
pretty cool, and it's subbed. Interesting. And then Luna Varga. Yeah, it's got the whole thing. Truly absurd. Enjoy. It doesn't seem like Kenny's talked about it, but I could be wrong. I forget how good you can make YouTube subs look on occasion. I know, right? Very rare. I don't even know how they do it. Let's see. Yeah, that's more or less it. And then I just read those. Caroms is another word. There's this trend that I've been tracking of they insist on not using fandom words like hentai, OVA, otaku, even though they use otaku a lot. Hikikomori, certain terms like that, because they don't want to confuse the audience. They don't want to confuse the reader. And yet they use a lot of words that like are words, but nobody ever uses. Like I'm you know, I don't consider myself super well read or anything like that, but like these are words I've never heard of before, and I'm like 28. You know, I'm just like, what? So it's just like you want to like have the audience not be confused by the words you use, by the word choices, and yet you know, you use these kind of esoteric words or whatever. You know, that's just my argument about that. Anyway, spinach. It's about an hour and a half. Tempting to just end it now. But I like you guys'. I want to talk a little bit. I don't know, just chill. Don't need to read an article. Don't need to read no stinking article. Karam no video. Karam no video. Karam's is just, I don't know, it's a word. It's a word they used at some point. I have to look it up again. I didn't even define it that time. I was just like, what is this word? Normally with those words, I'd say that they're pretty common parlance in British English, but this one I've never come across, and I'm British. Let me Control F in the 3rd edition where they used it. Karams. One result. Writer Kyoko Yoshimura caroms between several interesting plots, much as the planes of the series dart all over the place in the air, before settling into a succession of epic battles. Caroms. Caroms, a cannon in billiards or pool, but then they're using it as the verb, make a carom, strike and rebound. So caroms is in like when you're in a billiard between walls, I guess. All right, that's a word. Cool. I learned a new word today. Isn't that interesting? Why not use these other words like call it a fucking hentai? Because you know what's so frustrating is when they fucking. It's like when you're reading an article and you don't quite know whether what you're reading is a hentai or not, unless they say it rape or they have like the nudity, violent, whatever. I don't know. I genuinely don't know sometimes. Like, I have to read the premise and be like, that sounds like a porn. But then there's these other titles where like they're not actually porn, but you might think they are. It's just frustrating. I gotta keep my bright light on, but you know. Oh. Oh. my wordplay weirdo brain likes that, but that might be hard to parse. It's just contradictory to what they're saying about, like, we're trying to avoid using the word hentai or otaku or, you know what I mean? Like, otaku terms. Can't say I care much for that word. Very good. Oh, man. But, it's kind of the extent of it, and I just want to stand here, sit here, like, silent or something. I'll admit, all the talking I did just now, like an hour and a half or whatever, I'm pretty sore. I can't stream for, unless I'm, like, super invested and have a whole bunch to, you know, go through and everything. I can I can muscle it through, but, I'm sore. I did a lot of stuff today. I not that I can't complain because I pretty much sat here all day. Yeah, not like I can't do much else because I don't have a car. That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it there. Let's get into some more questions or whatever. Subline note: should we use the word carom to punch this up? Yeah, they don't often have words like that, but there's some. Yeah, I've been part of that subtitle editing process. It's mostly just like grammar stuff. We don't ever have like notes of being like, should we punch this up? Thankfully, we don't have those decisions. We really just give it to a translator who's pretty nuts and bolts and does the thing, and it's usually pretty good translations. There's been one or two instances I've had where, like Dear Brother, I knew at least when we announced it, people were wondering whether we were going to fix the subs about like changing the ending line, not the ending line, like the last line, but like the last scene. The wording, it was originally translated as he, but it's supposed to be ambiguous of whether she settles with a guy or someone else, because it seemed like Yuri erasure. There's that trope in Yuri where girls kind of grow out of it. It's just a phase, and if they're really gay, it's not a phase, you know. So it kind of leaned into that trope, and people weren't so happy about that, the ending there. When the Japanese says kare, I believe it was kare, I think it was kare, and kare is technically gender neutral, but it was translated as he. It's like, I found a guy, or it's like, I found someone, he's whatever. So I was like, can we change? So I saw that on Twitter when it was announced, and then I spoke to, this is obvious, this is already out, whatever. I spoke to my boss being like, can we change this line to they? And it's like, it's technically, it is gender neutral, and they, we double checked it. We want it to be an accurate translation. We don't want to just cater to fans for the sake of it, for like, shipping or whatever. But it is an accurate translation, and the difficulty was it was already like on the, like, kind of sent to our guy. So I don't actually know if it got onto the disc. That's always been my tension with it, that I just don't know if it's on the disc. But I have the disc. I've just not checked. I've just never checked. Your video on starting with media OCD was pretty interesting. Thank you. It got a terrible thumbnail, but and it hasn't changed pretty much. I've mostly settled into, like, I've done some special features since then, but for the most part, that's been the extent of my job, is chapters and captions, with some little interesting side stories here and there. Have any of these entries actually gotten you interested in a series? No, exactly. So, let me get you the expedition list. This is the growing list of, if I can get it. Is that it? Come on. Nope. How can I help you? Yeah. Yeah. This. Titles I'm now interested in. This is a whole growing list of titles that, from reading their article on it, for better or worse, I've become interested in that title based on reading it, which is really the point of this whole thing. So it grows, and there's also these other ones that I have heard already, but them reading it makes me interested in it now. And not just over spite over how Little Stock just genuine good finds at Panda Any Gold. I think Panda Any Gold for sure. I think there is. I haven't checked any myself, but I plan to kind of go through them all in like a sequence, in like an order, in like going through all of them basically, or at least trying them. I've been taking my time with Dear Brother. That show is a beefy meatball. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I might try to buy Dear Brother if Discotheque does a Black Friday sale with right stuff. Otherwise, I'll wait for summer, whenever they offer me free shipping. That's fair. Although be aware that it was a limited print, so it, get it while you can. We could only print so many of those, and that was because it was a very abrupt acquisition, to my knowledge. From what I can understand, like we got that title very quick, so our window of like being able to license and like print it was very, very short. At least shorter than normal. We wouldn't. It's like we probably don't have time to do another printing of it. Gotcha. I actually sent in the Japan VHS scans for 801. Glad I was able to give you all a hand. Oh, that's great. Yeah, man. That shit's packed. That shit's a kitchen sink. I have not heard very much about Gunbuster, but I remember Justin tweeting that it's a very similar disc. It's like on akin to Memories, I think, which is also really impressive. Memories is also an incredible disc. Content warning for sure with Dear Brother. From episode 1, each episode feels like a film in its own right. Yeah, man, he was on top of his game. It really is peak. It's tough because I consider his 70s period from like from Rose of Versailles to Cobra, his like to Golgo, I would say, his golden era. That's where he was like really in the sweet spot in his lane and everything. And then he refined his style so much that it's oversaturated in Dear Brother. Like it's postcard memories every 5 minutes. Like it's ridiculous how much Dazaki that show is. Oh gosh, does that happen a lot with Discotheque? No, that was a singular rare weird instance. That was a weird one. Although we have experimented with making limited runs for a lot of the Crunchyroll stuff. That's like kind of nothing seasonals, like the kind of the leftover seasonals that they give us. We've only printed like 1,000 or 1,500 of certain series. And that's just to get our money's worth, basically. Because obviously it's costly to print that many. And then if you just kind of lug them around or keep them in a warehouse and they don't get sold, it's like, you'd like to get your money's worth, right? Oh yeah, the Gunbuster dub is coming out hopefully soon when it's only 6 episodes. Well, yeah, and that what's remarkable is that it's like the first release in a long time where it is the 6 episodes. It's not the movie. The movie's been in print for a while, but people always want the 6 episode OVA, the original. And so now not only do we have that, which is like a white whale of sorts for licenses, we're also dubbing it, which is such an exciting thing. It just means more people get to see it. That have that people we've wanted people to see it. It's great OVA. Would it be cool to talk with you outside of a public stream, knowing a few things? The process of fascinating. Yeah, Yeah, it would be fascinating. I agree. Um, I'm happy you're interested. Very happy you're interested. And it's also just it's an exciting continuing process, right? We have this stream coming up next week, I think, or the week after, very soon, where we're gonna be announcing a good amount of stuff. It's gonna be real fun. I edited one new trailer for one of the things we're announcing, and then there's this other title that I'm almost positive we're announcing at this stream. That it's like they wanted this one for a while. You know what I mean? It's exciting. This is one of the like I think Justin said fill your pants type type announcement, streams. It's like, yep, that'll be good. That'll be a good one. I have the Gunbust OVA DVD. I still buy the Blu-ray from y'all when I can. Oh, for sure. Oh man, can't keep smiling how excited I am for that. And then even more, there's even other stuff like after that stream that we haven't even started working on that like I'm still looking forward to. That's kind of down the line. It's really exciting. Anywho, I think I'll end it there before I in case I accidentally spill any more beans. I haven't spilt any beans. No beans have been spilt on this stream. I'll have you know. Yeah. But it's been really great talking with you guys. At least 3 pants fillers from what he said. Yeah, there's 2 I can think of that's like, oh yeah, you know what? If the third one, if it's that one, then it's like, okay, yeah, that's pretty. People are gonna be like, that. I think I told them that like, one of those titles, it's like that's just gonna 2 of them actually. I think it's 2 of them that are just like, they're gonna ask for the rest of them now, type of deal. Once we announce this one, it's gonna be like, oh, does that mean? Which is no, not necessarily, but if there's interest, kind of deal. Not sure I like the sound of fill your pants stream, but I like the sound of fill your pants stream. All right, have a nice day. Yeah, I'm gonna head outie. You guys see that? We'll hopefully see you next week, and I'll try to actually read. Do a lot of dedicate the day to reading. I haven't done that in the past couple weeks, so we're gonna finish L, hopefully next week. You guys are great. You have a great week. Yo, peace.